learn the Mammar, the two Mammarim of Tehilim Hashem. These are Mammarim from Binyamin, Lekuttai Torah. Hey Ariel, we're going to start the Mammar now of Tehilim Hashem. Hold on, let me just get it started here. Okay, the Mammar says like this: Tehilim Hashem mivtech b'adam. Hey Adam, it's better to trust in God than to trust in man. If the materials on the chat in the PDF on the I believe it should be on the right hand side. It says lahavin mahu toiv. What does it mean better to trust in Hashem than to trust in man? Seemingly the message is that you can also trust in man, but it's better to trust in Hashem. It says al tivtechu b'nedivim ven adam. You shouldn't trust in man. You shouldn't trust in the givers and son of man. So what is the pasuk? What is David the Melech saying to Tehilim? It's only better to trust in God, as if one could also trust in man. Place their trust, meaning to say, place their trust that there's going to be salvation. Is trusting is the one of the foundations of bitachon, shar bitachon, from Rabbeinu Bechaya and onward, is the idea that we don't place our trust in man. It's only in Hashem. So how does David say only toiv? It's better. V'gam lahavin also to understand the Gabi Kadosh Baruch Hu sif lachseis v'gabi adam miftayach. Lachseis is to take cover. The trust is to take cover. And we're starting just on page 32. Toiv lachs b'Hashem aleph.
Okay, good. I found the Zoom link. The YouTube doesn't work for some reason on mine.
Oh, you could try. I mean, YouTube would work.
I found the Zoom. The YouTube one didn't work, but anyway, it wasn't marked Zoom, but I tried to click somewhere else and I found, and it was Zoom.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going on the YouTube. Okay, so either way, so it says
I don't have sound with my Facebook and stuff like that. I'm having trouble with my phone. Anyway.
Okay, so we're on page 32 to the left-hand side. The material is in the chat room if anyone wants to follow along. So it says like this. So first question is, why does it say Toiv Lachs Hashem? It's only better to trust the man as opposed to as if to trust in God, as if to trust in man is also okay. Hold on a second. I'm going to bring up the verse over here. So it says it's better to take shelter. So the word lachlis is take shelter, which means in concept it means to take trust. But why does it use the word shelter? And by man it says trust. The idea is like this. It doesn't say, it says ba'adam. In the grammar, ba'adam, is in grammar means to say it's like when you say hamakom, means the place, as if this is a noted place, a place that's been already a well-known place. So it says ba'adam, and as if the well-known man. So why does it say ba'adam with a kamatz? It's hubechinus adam elin, because it's not referring to regular man, human beings. It's referring to Hashem, the image of God that was seen in the chariot. Adam Elyon, like it says, when Yecheskel sees the chariot, he sees the image of man. Umiftayach, what's the word bitachon mean? So it says milashin v'tachas abayis. It's like, preparing the house with plaster, meaning making the house strong. Shulashin ticha v'dibuk shadavka b'china zubi pnimis v'teich b'chai. The idea is to paste it and to stick it in. So it should go very, very deep, meaning the idea of bitachon, of the trust, it uses the word bitachon. When we say the word bitachon, it comes from the word bitachas abayis, is like creating a solid relationship in our trust of Hashem. So that's what the word bitachon means. But the word lachsais is shechaisa b'tzel u'makiv shel, is an encompassing. Shechaisa, they cover themselves. They take shelter from the shade, which is from above. So therefore, the question is like this: if we're all talking about Hashem, so it says the Adam is Adam Elyon. So we're talking about the image of man that God that Yecheskel sees or describes in the chariot. So what does it mean? Toiv lachseis b'Hashem, take shelter in God, then to place your trust. And trust means like to strengthen the house, which is a strong relationship. So therefore, what David Melech is saying is like this: that yoiser that v'zeu toiv lachseis b'bechinas makiv shebechinas havaya. It's better to go into an encompassing energy of Yudke Vavke. Yoisim bechinas hashars pnimis shal bechinas adam elyon, than to have an internal relationship with Hashem as He manifests an image of man. This becomes all of a sudden a deep question. Why is it a deep question? Because we know that this is in general what we're going to describe as mimali kolam and seiv kolam, the way Hashem surrounds the world and the way Hashem is within the world. Within the world is the ability to have a pnimis, an internal relationship, because it's in a way that we could internalize it. It's not a light that's beyond us. It's a relationship that we could internalize. So one could say maybe that's better because it's internal. Or do we say that's better to go with the level of soiv, even though it's above us, if it's encompassing, it's only a tzel, it's only a makiv. So the question
my
is,
experience is not mutually exclusive. When I think of the image I saw of Hashem coming to me that was external, that gives me that trust, but I also had it go inside of me and become internal during the same experience.
so there's such a concept. That's what Chassidus wants from a person. That's the idea of sukkah. That's why we have sukkah. This is why this is a Mammar in sukkahs. Why? Because on sukkahs we sit in the sukkah, which is or makiv, is an encompassing energy, and the idea is that we want to have the encompassing energy of the sukkah. But the idea is to also take the luv and esrog and bring it to our heart, is to internalize it. So the idea is to try to do both. Whereas if you can only do one, and this we see that not just in a conceptual idea, but also when a person's, for instance, a person is, for instance, to go to an environment. Makiv is an environment where things are positive. So you go to a place that has a strong environment better, or do you go to a place that has better it may not be, the environment may not be as strong, but at least it's whatever the message is, it's going to be internalized. So let's see. He says like this. The idea is like this. So, to understand this by Avodas Adam, in our service of God, in service of Adam Elyon. What does this mean, Bechinas Adam Elyon? And what does it mean that there's Havai Yudke Vavke? So it's like this. There's many ways a person is misbainin, contemplates about their relationship with Hashem. There's a way a person who internalizes it. The zbainin is the contemplation. B'kerev ish, into a person, v'leiv amak, into a deep heart, which means you bring yourself through his baininess, that your heart should be excited and lit up. But it doesn't transform you. So it doesn't, it means you can light up your heart in a way that doesn't transform you. He says, you take care, you wedge in the love in your heart as the heart is, that the heart that feels should feel for Hashem, because the heart is a vessel to be able to receive this love as much as it can handle. So what it handles in love, it's going to handle in love for Hashem. So that's one hisbaininus. Means apply my feelings for something towards Hashem. I could feel. So that feeling, I haven't transformed my heart as a tool that could feel something. I just apply it towards Hashem. The Yeshis Baininus is level of contemplation. It's in the place of the person's comprehension of their mind. And what your mind understands, your heart is not a vessel for that kind of understanding. And therefore what happens? Had to receive, went all the way to the heart. That's what's known as the experience of Kleisa Nefesh. Why is it called Kleisa Nefesh? Kleisa Nefesh means kale means that the soul ceases to exist as we know it, meaning that's a person who dies from love of Hashem. Like we describe Nadav and Avihu, the Archaim, the Kli Yakar describe the relationship Nadav and Avihu had when they went into the Mishkan and they gave the sacrifice that was unwarranted. So they had Kleisa Nefesh. Their hearts gave away. Their soul couldn't contain anymore the passion, the excitement they had for Hashem. So if you have, sometimes your mind is much stronger than your heart. So that's why we see a lot of times a person could hear information and it could cause an immediate effect on Chas v'Shalom. You could faint, God forbid, you could die, you have a heart attack. Why? Because your heart can't handle that information. So the same thing as when you do Isbaininus about Hashem, with your about Hashem and your relationship to Hashem and creation, etc. It's so deep that your heart can't handle it. And had you brought it down to your heart, it would be klais nefesh. You would experience a leaving of the body. He says like this. So he says, sorry, I skipped the paragraph 4. And there's also a level that even your mind can't understand. That's why we daven the Shemona Esrei quietly, is because we can't even talk about it loud. So the message is so silent because our mind doesn't really grasp it. Even the mind, even the comprehension of the soul has to nullify itself to the message that it's saying. It means I don't understand, right? It doesn't make sense. It's just beyond.
Yeah, like when I saw the vision of the figure, Adam Ha'elyon or whatever you could term that, appeared to me. I still don't totally understand it intellectually. I mean, I can compare it to various concepts I've heard, but I don't know for sure if it's this concept or that concept or exactly, how to understand it in the mind.
Yeah, so there's not knowing how to identify it, and a different idea is not only that you don't know how to identify it. It's you know the words of what you're saying. You understand what you're trying to identify, but the message is just not comprehensible. You can't understand. You can't comprehend it. It's not a lot of times things we see things. It's like the expression, you have to see it to believe it. Why do you have to see it to believe it? Because to describe it doesn't make sense. I can't describe it to you.
Well, I saw it, but
that's why when you see something,
say in words, it was definitely this or that. It was God coming to me. I saw it. I saw God, and I felt God inside of me. But we had a communication of synesthetic, whatever communication. But I can't, in words or intellectually, explain it. This is what it is. This is the word for it, and so forth.
Yeah, so that's the idea of something that's beyond description. So he says the Malak Nefesh says, who is Binyamin? And he says, V'hine, so the first level of comprehension where your heart could actually, not only your mind can understand, but even your heart is a receptacle to this feeling. That's man, because that's a form. There's a body, and the body has limbs.
Form, and I've sought for it in Jewish writings, and I have different words, Hebrew words, to say what it was, but I can't say for sure it was this one or that one. How do I know? I've looked for it in the literature.
That's something you would have to take a lifetime to study. What you've seen. Dreams is
I've been doing exactly. Dreams and is partly why I want to study works like Ruach HaKodesh, but I don't have somebody to study it with.
Yes, we discussed that. So he says like this: when we have a comprehension that the heart could grasp it, that's called Adam. Like a man is made up of intellect and emotions. That's the level of Adam. When we say Havaya, because we said in this pasuk, David Melech says, Toiv lachsis b'Hashem miftach ba'Adam, to take shelter with God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, then to place your trust in man, which means Adam Elyon. So Adam Elyon is the way Hashem is the level of godliness that manifests within the concept of Seichel Midas, means it's understood and it's felt. But the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the creator, not the creation, but the creator, says is beyond what the soul could comprehend. The very fact that we're a vessel, our heart could be a vessel for information, or even more than information than for feeling, is because it manifests in the idea of Adam, which is what we would call creation. But the idea of creator, obviously the creator is greater than the creation, which is Havaya, is beyond not only our feelings, but also our comprehension. And that's what he says, that David Melech says. The person asks themselves, where should they? What kind of level of gilui do you want? Do you want to own? Do you want to own your revelation? which is Adam, or do you want it to, or you'd rather be in a light that you can't, it's not tangible, not in mind or heart, but it's a much greater light. So David Melch addresses this question, and he says, "V'zeh tov lachzis b'Hashem." Hagam she'yeh b'chinas makav, although you're not going to be able to internalize it because it's beyond you. You have no vessel, not in mind or heart, to contain this, and therefore it stays in a makiv. But a definition makiv encompassing is something that can't fit inside. Bechinas havaya, and you can't bring it into your heart. Alpha became, so a person may think, better I go with Adam than with havaya. So on this question, David Melch says no. Alpha became toiv yesel milyes batuach bechinas Adam. It's alpha became toiv yeser milyes batuach bechinas Adam. It's better than to place your trust in man, meaning to build a relationship with Hashem, how He manifests in a way that you can internalize it in heart and mind. If you should call goyim sevavuni, because you are vulnerable. When David Melch doesn't just say it as a statement, he continues to explain why. If he should call goyim sevavuni, the nations are surrounding me. The goyim doesn't mean over here nations physically, also means the idea of goyishkeit, of non-Jewishness ideas. So therefore, if you internalize it, then you're like a person who has your weapons. We know that the difference between a sword and a bow and arrow in Torah is the sword is a person-to-person combat. But you're vulnerable to the person. You get struck. A bow and arrow it hits something from a distance. That's makif. So over here it says, because kol goyim sevavuni, sheish bechinas goyim. What is goyim? He says, hema gufa nefesh bahamis, your body and your animalistic soul, klipas noga, that comes from the klipa, even if it's permissible klipa, but it's not holiness. And a person is made up of this. A person has bodily needs. A person has a nefesh bahamis. So this is who the person is. Like we say, neshama shenasata bi tahirahi. The soul that you've given me is pure. Who's bi? Who's me? Me is the nefesh bahamis. The body, the nefesh bahamis has. So you've given me a pure soul. You've given me a nefesh alikis, but me myself, I'm kol goyim sevavuni. I have a body. I have a nefesh bahamis, and therefore David Melch says to have your relationship in a way that you internalize it is still vulnerable because kol goyim sevavuni. Behem hatardim. They stress. They put stress and tension. Umapilim, and they could bring a person down. Machshavas zaris, with foreign thoughts. Foreign thoughts usually are translated as bad thoughts, and bad thoughts or inappropriate thoughts. But it means also inappropriate. It doesn't just mean it's zar because it's not holy, it's not godly. Whether it comes in a form of anxiety, whether it comes in a form of ego, whether it comes in a form of anything that's not holy is zar. So therefore, what brings a person down is machshavas zaris, thoughts that are foreign. I feel b'amsat feeling it could reach a person sometimes specifically while you're davening. You're davening, all of a sudden all your anxieties build up. Especially because you start davening about things that you want to daven for. So if those things really matter to you, and it's the physicality, and let's say you're davening for parnasa. So if the parnasa is what dictates your happiness, so when you start talking about it in davening, it can awaken some feelings of anxiety. I feel b'amsat tefillah. Ki nikasa mitzirufi yoisis adibur, because he says something else. When a person starts speaking, so this is an idea that the Alter Rebbe mentions many times. When a person starts speaking, in the spaces of speech or in the spaces of writing, the white on the parchment, right? The black is the letters. The white on the parchment is separation. That's when you start speaking, it's not a flow of words in a way of like a water. It's broken up into letters and words. And letters and words and sentences have space. And in that space is a place where chitzonius, external ideas could enter or could draw energy. So it says, they siphon off the letters that are put together. Between letters and words, which are open spaces, and therefore they're vulnerable. And that's what could bring a person down with foreign thoughts. That's in davening. Then he says also, also in a person's emotional buildup. Our love that the godly soul has is enclosed in a body and an animalistic soul. Even if a person wakens their love for God in their prayer, like we said before, and you internalize it, because at that moment you're plugged in and focused. Nefesh says as much as you can handle. But when you move on, you lose that focus. So only what you have left is, so to say, a reshima, like a sign that you once prayed, and that's not strong enough to carry a person through the day. Meaning that this is what David says, because kol goyim sebavuni, because you're constantly surrounded by a goyish mindset, the idea of nefesh bahamas and nefesh and the guf. So therefore you're vulnerable, and therefore and even the moments that you have that are solid are momentary. And he continues, however, if you contemplate, and what does it mean? David says that you should take shelter from God and not place your trust in man. He said before, both of them come through spineiness, through contemplation. It's how you apply yourself. Is it about things that you could handle? Are you bringing godliness within your limitations, or are you connecting beyond your limitations? In your hisbaininess of Hashem, that means beyond your needs, beyond what works for you, beyond how God is your relationship with God, and therefore, if your contemplation is above what the soul can handle, means you cannot internalize it. And therefore, you have to nullify your comprehension to the message, although you're not really understanding it properly. Though it's only encompassing and you cannot internalize it. But when I have Hashem's name, I'm connected to the makif, is amilam, I could destroy. So that's what it says. If you have Shem Hashem, if you're connected through your zbaininess with the encompassing energy, yes, it's beyond you. It's like a person who says, I want to go into a safe space. What is the idea of safe space? Today it's a very popular concept. The encompassing space protects me, otherwise I'm vulnerable. So the person says that b'Shem Hashem, the encompassing energy Kamilam is going to destroy the negative, the urges and the anxieties and the wants of the nefesh of the body and the animalistic soul. Pirsh amilam, what does the word amilam mean? It means two things. Yesh by base perushim, two translation. One is lashon krisa, to cut off. Behind bisur meira, cut off, you disconnect to that concept of doing wrong. Mamish, shemishalish klipus atmeas, from the three levels of total impurity. Ulashin mila, dahanu krisis ha'orla ha'chefefes, and the other idea of amilam is to circumcise, means take off the foreskin of the heart. When you could get rid of the foreskin that's blocking the heart, so then a person, which the idea is to sanctify yourself with the permissible. So they're sanctifying yourself with the permissible, which means bringing extra holiness and separation in your life. Like the Rambam says, that's a mitzvah daraisa. To sanctify yourself with the permissible. But it's permissible. Why can I indulge? No, but you have to sanctify yourself, bring kedusha even into permissible. That applies to every aspect of your life. And the first level is to amilam, says just disconnect from doing negative things, wrong things. Bahatam, what is the reason why? Shem Hashem amilam, that the name, the encompassing energy that's beyond your comprehension. So you don't own it, you haven't internalized it, but that protects a person from both negative and positive. And negative meaning to not do negative things and to be open and get rid of the foreskin in the way of the positive. And Kaddish Atzmacham Mutalach, sanctify yourself with the permissible. By definition, encompasses from all sides. There's no vulnerability. There's no place of breach. He gives an example. A person who's very preoccupied, a person could sometimes get overwhelmed with the thought that you can't kick. Anywhere you are, in any situation, you ever been in a situation, someone says, snap out of it? What snap out of it means? Be present. You're not being present because you're preoccupied with usually it's a concerning thought, or a regretful thought, or a worrisome thought, or an idea that is just taking you over, from all sides. So the Alter Rebbe says, you can't lose your concentration from this idea. Even while you're doing other things. No matter where you go, the thought is preoccupying you. Some people if a person in a good way has such a thought, so it's a positive thought that never leaves you. But we see it sometimes more in a negative thought, unfortunately, where something negative that's sitting on you Could be in a way that there's no, you can't, try to go to another place. You try to get out of it, try to get out of that thought, chas v'shalom, that you have. So it's sometimes it's too strong. The thought doesn't leave you. So too in encompassing energy that we're talking in the positive way, taking in from Hashem. It's like that thought that you can't leave, and there's an awareness. Just like, what's the thought? The thought is that there's a consciousness and awareness of what's, let's say in the case of something that's bothering you, an anxiety that's bothering you, that no matter what situation you're in, you can't get rid of it. But in the positive, it's the same idea. Everything negative has a shoirish, a root in the positive, an opposite in the positive. So too, there could be a person who's so preoccupied with godliness in their focus that there's no situation, there's no scenario. Like we said, when a person internalizes something, that's when you're davening. When you leave the davening, so then you left the moment and you're out in the world, so you're vulnerable. But if the thought is with you, with godliness is with you the whole time, so that there's no vulnerability. That's why it says b'shem Hashem amilam. It silences the voices of negativity.
Yeah, but that's not something easy to have all the time. Usually these experiences are fleeting, and then you can't really take it with you all the time through your regular life, and
that's the whole point. That's exactly what David HaMelech is saying, and Alter Rebbe is explaining that the idea is that if you really connect to something makiv, that you really, and you could see it in negativity. You see, if you have a worrying thought or an anxiety or something that's really sitting on you, there's no scenario, there's no situation that you could go to that is going to let you lose your train of thought, and you're going to be you see, your person goes to a party. What's bothering this person? Why is the person being bothered?
Well, let's get away from the bothering part and go to the other side.
No, because
we're talking about.
I'll tell you what.
I'll give an example.
No, because that's the point.
That's the bothering part. But the
question is, but how
do you stay in that higher consciousness?
No, but that's the whole point.
Instead of
that's the whole point. The whole point is that it's much easier. We learn. David HaMelech says, "I learned from my enemies." It means in everything you approach, a bad thought is an enemy thought, and therefore you should be able to, just like you're able to have a thought, an anxiety that you can't kick, so to a positive thought. If you really plugged in, if it really bothered you, if you really were excited about God, it'd be that same idea that no matter where you are, you can't lose that thought. And you're right, it's difficult. It's difficult because this is something positive and holy to bring upon yourself. But if you really were, it was part of you, then it would, just like the negative thought doesn't leave, so to the positive thought wouldn't leave. That's the whole idea.
It's not the same. It's not the same. I don't think
it is. It's not the same because you're not making it the same. That's why it's called.
It's not something you can make the same. When Hashem comes to you by grace in a moment, it's not something you can make happen.
I'm not talking about such an experience. That's not a makiv experience. I'm talking about here. The Alter Rebbe is talking about. He starts off on page 33 in the top. Avodas Hashem. Avodas Hashem is not an experience that comes to you. Avodas Hashem is effort, things that you've built. Avodah, by definition, is the service that you've created. And this, we're talking about his bindiness that is created by you through your efforts, both in machshava divrei ma'isa. You apply yourself in speech, action, and thought, specifically in the thought, because his bindiness is in the mind and the heart, and you apply yourself to the idea of godliness in such a way, although it's beyond internalizing it, but it becomes such a reality, such an awareness that you're constantly aware of it, and therefore it's always with you. That's the whole point of what he's saying here. But he says, Adam. So that's if you're able to. Then he says, Vatam. Sorry again. It's with you and never leaves. Although the body may be surrounding you and may be wanting to breach and attack you, nevertheless, it's not going to have entry. Why not? It's not going to have entry because you're constantly focused on it. You're never leaving alone the thought. But the Adam, which is the internal, when you want to do it internal, yes, it's internal, it's with you. You understand it, you feel it better. But as it says, there's a time when man rules man. What does it mean, man rules man? When Adam atachton, when lower man rules over higher man, and vice versa. It's like I said, a fighting that's close. Sometimes you're struggling. Sometimes you're winning. The next time, sometimes the other person's winning. Sheyesh shlita. He says sometimes there's a ruling of chas v'shalom la'adam achshim ekliba from the other side, from the man of negativity. Even though you know it's not good for you. And afterwards you may have regrets, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be vulnerable to the moment. But here the Alter Rebbe says like this: it's not enough. Like you were mentioning before, Sharon, it's not enough to say it's only either or. That I'm only going to have a makif. I'm only going to take comfort in the surroundings, and I'm not going to bring in the what's called the panimi because the panimi I'm vulnerable. So the Alter Rebbe finishes off. It's not enough to be in Chassidus, Chabad especially. It's very much about to have panimi, to be a panimi, not a makif. Panimi is be real. Bring it home. Don't take protection only in a fabrengen, in an environment, in a place where you feel safe, because the difference on the flip side is that you need the space. You're dependent on the space where because you inside have nothing, brought nothing inside. So as long as you're in a good environment, you're staying focused. As soon as you get out of that environment, you're also vulnerable. So here he says, although you could bring it with you more and more because you're always doing it, and it may not breach inside you, but if you're living in a good community, etc., etc. But he says that's not enough. He says at the end of the day, he says, you have to have both. The idea is you have to have what's called Hashem is li. You have to take the Yudke Vavke and bring it to me, not just that the Avaya is, so to say, carrying you. That's what Shmini Atzeres is. That's why after Sukkot, so these are the three stages of Tishra. The Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is as much as you could bring into the Avodas Hashem that's in your heart. Sukkot, then you go into the next level, which is B'Shem Hashem, Tov Lachsis B'Hashem, which is the cell, the shade, the encompassing energy, the sukkah. But after sukkah comes Shmini Atzeres, which is that Atzeres. The whole idea of Shmini Atzeres is to koilet, to gather in everything. So at the end of the day, he says it's not enough just to have Tov Lachsis B'Hashem. You have to have also Adam. Why? Because it has to be a vayali. You have to bring it to me. Which is to grasp it, to hold on to it. Shehu b'chinas Adam. Which is the idea of man. Man is men and women together, both called man, and therefore a person has to bring it home. That's your job: is not just to surrender because it's beyond you. As much as you can to bring it in. Hey Ariel, welcome back. And that's why he brings it back to Sukkot, which it says B'chol Ezrach B'Yisrael. So that's why it says Evi Ezrach, which means, so to say, every person. Or the word the Alter Rebbe says in other places, Zareach, that everyone who shines in Israel, Pish B'Tach Yisrael Pnimis, has to shine within you. When a person, the difference is like this: when a person is sitting only in the sukkah, and a person's only sitting in the encompassing energy, then it's a shade. It's not light. Shade is actually a shade of darkness. That is, it's in the way it's limiting the light. Is not revealed, a revealed light. God is my shadow on my right side. But the day should be with the sun that shouldn't be weakened. Because the tzel, the shade, is only an encompassing protection. Yes, it protects you from the outside forces, like we said before. But he says, but if it comes down to that, you have to choose. You can't do both. The person says, and this goes all the way down to practical decisions in your life, of where you live, what kind of environment, what kind of community, the various choices you make. As David Melech says, is what a person's faced with. If you could have the whole idea, you could bring it in, and then go into the cell, go into the shade, and then internalize it. So that's the way it should be. But if you can't do both, and you have to decide, am I going to just work on myself internally, but then I'm vulnerable from external, or I give myself an external protection, although I'm lacking in an internal relationship with Hashem. So that the David Melech says, if you have a choice and you can't do both, then Toiv Lachsis Hashem, then better go with an encompassing energy of positivity, because better be in an encompassing energy, because lefachot it's going to protect you from the goyim sevavuni, from the nefesh abahamis, from your urges, from your wants of physicality. U'b'chinas acheres yoseh toiv b'chinas adam u'b'china acheres, and so, but in other ways it's also internalized. It's better. So therefore, there's two. Both are good, and there's what's called toiv, better if you have to choose one. Of course, better is to go with encompassing energy, but the ultimate idea is to have both. Okay, we're going to stop here because it's Sukkot. I have to go daven early, everyone. I want to wish everyone a Chag Kosher v'Sameach, and we won't be having.
Have a safe trip.
Thank you. We won't be having a Talmud. We'll have a Talmud class and a shmooze. We won't be having the Sicha class this week. Laila Tov and
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good night.